this opportune moment. There he is. A very good morning, my brother Stephen Mbide. People living with albinism. Acquaint us. Mbide, you're live. Stephen Mbide, you are now live on Morning at NTV. You do have a conversation largely focusing on people living with albinism. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Romeo Busiku. I'm holding a report. It's profiling persons with albinism in northern, western, and central region. And this has been done by Albinism Umbrella. And just because we need to know the numbers, if we are to plan, or as the government, as local government, for the people, and of course all the numbers. And this is just at the launch of the findings for the central region, because many reports have been done for the northern region and the eastern side. But particularly today, this is the one for central region. Mbuze ku bakulu bano bo bambulire babisanze batya obulamu coping up with albinism in Uganda. How easy is it and how hard is it for them? Sebo Sotya.
Yendi mukulu asweta sebo.
Erinnya lye sebo.
Manya gange nze Mukasa Emma. Masaka sebo.
Masaka. Simanyi myaka gy'olina naye sooka ombuli obulamu obusanze otya ng'okula ne mu gy'obeera mu kitundu oba ne ku mirimu oba ng'okola.
Obulamu kituufu bukalubamu naye obubanga olina omutima era omutiitiizi tosobola kumalako n'ensi. Obulamu bukalubama tubabira batuyisaamu amaaso. Lumunzi nzijukira edda nga nali naakajja mu kibuga nengerako mu kafo akamu okufuna ekyemisana natuuka nasangamu abantu nga bali mu kulya mmere kati waliwo meeza gye natuukako n'entuula. Waliwo omwami nga amaze okusaba ekyokulya kye bamaze omumuwa yakalako fooko nga bbiri bwe yalaba nga nzize nga atuula awo n'asitukawo n'agenda ng'alaba nga anesiyesitiwadde tayagala nakunda wadde okunsemberera mbu oba tulye ffenna.
Nga kikyasinga okutya ennyo?
Kale nduuzi nga kutweyinyala bwe bati batutwala nga batali abantu abamu. Ebiseera ebyo naddala emabegako naye kati kigenze kikyukamukko katono. TV ne radio zino zigenze zituyambamukko n'ebino ebibiina ebize.
Kwegamba yali alowooza nti walubino kubeera alubino ogenda musiiga.
Simanyi awo kyeyalaba oba yalaba nga simufaananidde bulungi. Simanyi kyeyalowooza oba yalaba simufaananidde bulungi oba kiki simanyi ye mu mutima gwe bwe yakitwala.
All right, these are some of the issues. He says that he was at one time he was in a restaurant in Kampala, and as he was sitting, other people stood up and left him alone on the table. That was discrimination against a person with albinism. Sebo Sotya.
Bulungi sebo. Sebo wasuze oti.
Bulungi sebo. Erinnya lyo sebo ne gy'ovudde.
Nze Bugembe Ddiiki nga nange nvudde Masaka nga nze wano mu
obisanga oti omukulu w'e Masaka abantu abalina ba albino mubayisa mutya e Masaka?
Ba albino mu butuufu e Masaka nabo basosolwa, tebalowoozebwako ng'abantu. Ate abalala bo bagamba nti ba albino balina engeri kwegamba munansonyiwa okukyogera, bo bagamba nti balina engeri ey'enjawulo, nti balinga bakaŋŋambe nti bamalayika. Mu ngeri eyo bo abantu bwe batyo batulowooza batutya nnyo. Kati nze ndiko obulemu nange ate era nga nze nina n'akawuka akaleeta mukenenya. Mu nsonga eyo abantu bano engeri ffe gye tumanyi nti nze ndiko obulemu ne bannange abalala abaakula mu mbeera yonna enkula yonna singa abanga tali mu mbeera eri ey'obuntu bulamu kwegamba bali abeeyita abalamba manya nti oyo muganda wange mwannyinaze.
Okay, let me also engage the executive director of Albinism Umbrella, the people who have done this survey. First of all, why have they done this survey and what are their findings, especially from the central region? Good morning to you, Olive Namtebi.
Good morning, Stephen. We have done this spatial mapping, one, to know the status of persons with albinism. Today we are in central Uganda and we did in 7 districts. That is the districts of Luwero, Kayunga, Mukono, Rakai, Masaka, Mpigi and Mubende. This is just a sample. We were glad to know that there are 267 persons with albinism who we profiled and their conditions varying. For instance, 43% of them have been rejected at one or more social centers, a hospital, a school. That is a worrying number. And it is also unfortunate to know that 62% do not know the cause of albinism. So if you do not know the cause, one, you don't know how to prevent the challenge or to overcome the challenges you have. Two, you may even not be able to stand for your rights. So today we want to inform the public that yes, people with albinism are people like you. One, I always emphasize that if you do not know the cause, ask. Albinism is not bewitched, but only inherited from both parents. We emphasize both because women are always the center of the issues of people with albinism. So today we want people to know, because 62% not knowing means they will believe anything that is told to them. It is also very unfortunate that 58% of school-going children were out of school. And even if we did this amidst COVID, our question was clear. Before COVID, were you in school? So we know what COVID, the pandemic, has done. But even then, half of children with albinism were not going to school. How much more with the pandemic? So there is a lot for the parents, for the policymakers, for the community. My friend in Masaka just said, walked in a hotel and somebody walked out. Another walked in a taxi and other people didn't want to sit near them. But all we are saying, we are flesh and blood like you.
I've also heard about those who are going for witchcraft and they are targeting people with albinism. Thank
you so much. Ritual sacrifice exists in Uganda, and indeed we want to make this known that you cannot sacrifice a human being to become rich. Only hard work and luck perhaps can make you rich. So we want people to know that albinism, one, is not a curse. You've not been bewitched. So it is not anything connected to ritual sacrifice. We're fortunate to talk to the Pokino in Masaka, and some of the myths that we knew were debunked. For instance, they believe that people with albinism disappear and they do not die. And he was kind enough to elaborate to us that just like when the king passes on, they do not say he has died. So the same connotation was used for people with albinism, but not that they do not die, because they do not know what to say.
Okay, briefly, Olive, here you're going to be having persons or executives from the Equal Opportunities Commission. You're going to be having some members of parliament and other different levels of advocacy and implementation of these programs. What would you want them to do for the persons with albinism?
Thank you so much. One, why we even call the stakeholders Equal Opportunities Commission, the Uganda Human Rights, that whenever they are planning, members of parliament, until you know who we are, until you know our challenges, you will not think about us. We appreciate today that people with albinism are part of persons with disabilities. Yes, but even then, until you unpack, because I may not need a wheelchair, yet another person needs. Mine will need telling that teacher that please take care of this child, write big letters, or allow them to sit or to even walk to the blackboard to see if they cannot see. A health worker, do we need to revise the curriculum? How come a midwife screams when a child with albinism is born? We imagine basic science took place, but what we see in the field is very different. So the policymakers, may we be aware ourselves, as in, can you know the constituencies that you represent, that there are some minority groups. This year, International Disability Day theme is invisible disabilities. Not invisible in the sense that it is not seen, but they have been forgotten. We have disabilities like mental health, people with albinism, and other sensory disabilities.
Thank you so much, Olive Namutebi, the Executive Director, Albinism Umbrella. This is the reason as to why you see people who are not persons with this albinism in this room, because this is an engagement that's going to look at the findings that were done by these people, Albinism Umbrella, to understand the coping mechanism, the plight of people with albinism. Stephen Imbidi and Professor Chibuga will be updating you later on what's happening here. Now handing you back to Romeo Busiku, and the engagement continues and the conversations here on Morning at 10 TV.
Citizens, this jurisdiction of Uganda is grappling with some 126,714 cases of COVID-19. Over 3,231 individuals have actually died as a result of this heinous pandemic. And to that effect, if you haven't left the confines of your humble abode, this is how you should be fully dressed. You need to be ensuring that you're wearing a face mask that is covering your nostrils, your mouth, and all these sensitive hotspots are actually covered so that you do not inhale the COVID-19 pathogens and you don't actually transport it back to your family members. My name is Rami Busiku. To all the kings, queens, boys and girls who are celebrating their birthdays on this day, please be cognizant of the fact